for part two, we're going to start a little bit differently. For this one, I'm going to walk through a mock draft because this is going to give us an idea of how you're actually going to get the majority of your players. Now, as the season goes on, for people who like wheeling, dealing, trades, etc., there's tons of opportunities to do those things. And in fact, you can spend the majority of your roster can kind of be shuffling around as you go. And I'll show more about that post-draft. But for some of you who prefer your loose fronts to your tight ends, maybe you want to make one-stop shop and get the majority of your players in one go. And if that's the case, the draft is how you're going to get the majority of your players in your roster set for the most of the year, unless there's injuries or some things that pop up throughout the year. So I want to make sure that we have some background. Again, I'll try and keep it as simple as possible with a few leads in for people who want to go a little bit deeper. First off, after we've set the when, we're going to start looking at exactly how we do so. To do that, a couple things you have to know. Number one, we do something called a snake draft. That means there's 8 people in our league. The first round will draft from 1 to 8, so everyone will have an assigned number. Second round goes 8 to 1, so hence the snake, it goes back and forth. Okay, so if you're first or you're 8th, you draft 2 in a row. For everybody else, you get to sit in the middle, maybe have a drink, and if you're able to join our chat, which I'm sure we'll have while we're going, we can talk a little bit as we go if there's any questions or if you just want to talk a little bit of smack. For us, the only fair way, instead of letting Yahoo kind of decide who goes first and who goes fourth and who goes 8th, etc., I thought for this particular crew, we should solve it ourselves beforehand so you know, and it seemed fitting that we did so with beer pong. Sorted as to what a draft order looks like and where you're going to be. This might help us with the second part where we actually look what a draft is. You do not have to do this beforehand, but one of the things that I think might be helpful, especially for those who've never used this before, even if you just spend 5 minutes at the beginning, it's just to get to know some of the controls you're going to need. Some people are very comfortable because it's a pretty easy setup. There is a group of people that I think when you see a clock ticking down, it stresses you out and then you start to kind of panic a bit. If that's you, I think the best thing you can do, you scroll up to the top of our screen. When you go to draft, now I said that you would mostly need the first couple. This might be the only time you need this particular tab. If you go to draft and you go down to mock drafts. So this is where you get to practice. Now, it also is good for your computer just to make sure that like a pop-up window comes up and to make sure there's not issues with that. Sometimes people have ad blockers, etc. And you don't want to find out right at the draft when you're trying to figure this out. So this kind of helps you. So whatever computer you're going to use whenever we draft, I would suggest now. We have an 8 team, but there are 10, 12, and 14 teams, like I said, but it's mostly, you want to keep it even numbers. So you can do this any size of draft if you want, but why not go to 8? Now the menus do jump a bit, which is frustrating, but 8 is always the small one. We're going to try and jump into this one. I'm just going to go third. Whoop, see, it goes quick. I'll go third then. Once you go to this part, it at least lets you know who's where. Now, what I would try and do is if I would have waited another 20 or 30 seconds, another game would have come up, probably for the same timeline, and it would have been whatever. It's more helpful if you just take the pick that you actually have. So if you are the third pick overall, then you would take this spot. I'm just going to do whatever Yahoo tells me to do. I don't want to give away any strategies or try and bias anybody in any way, shape, or form. But this is our kind of pre-draft menu. Now, there's nothing we can do until this timer times out, so we'll just have to be patient. All right, as you can probably notice, the draft is now loading. Don't worry, there'll be another countdown. The screen is fairly normal. You also may have noticed that you could actually upload any rankings that you had. If you want to not be satisfied with the Yahoo rankings and come up with some of your own and load them ahead of time, go ahead. If you do want to do that, you might be in the wrong pool. I think you might be taking this a bit seriously. Granted, no one wants to buy rounds of drinks, but come on. You don't need to make up your own rankings. You can figure it out as you go. So a couple things. So we got 2 minutes till the actual draft starts, and I think in this particular case, it's going to give us 30 seconds for the mock draft in the mock draft to make each pick. That's not the case for our draft. I think I gave you a minute and a half. I'll double check that. Now, it can be as easy as this. So just to kind of walk you through each of the elements here. This X rank is something that they just tried to do a composite ranking. So this is the one that most people keep their screen on. And that's important to know what most people do, because most of us aren't very smart, even when we think we are. So if there's a number attached to it, a lot of people just follow this particular guide, which you can totally do. And I've seen teams drafted who've done amazingly well by doing it. The only thing you have to bear in mind is some of the positions. Now, this mock draft is not like our draft. It has 1 quarterback. Our league has 2. So this is not a representation of exactly who you would pick, but it just gives you an idea of who might fall to you, okay? The next one, this is another composite ranking. This just does total points. So that's where all the quarterbacks are up top. I mentioned that in the first video. Okay, so this goes by total points that might happen based on the year. These are all projections, by the way. You can see that 2003 projections. ADP stands for average drafting position. So Yahoo probably does about 1 million a day drafts, mocks included, some people's actual drafts, and they kind of keep a running tally. So this number actually changes, and so does the order. It's telling you in the world roughly who takes what and when. Okay, if I go back to this X rating, the one thing that's kind of nice about it is it gives me an idea. Underneath the line is technically, in theory, the player who on average should fall to me. And if I keep going, it's going to show me that each round. This sometimes becomes important. If you're trying to figure out who might fall to you and you think our league just follows these numbers, then I could look here and say, okay, I could take this person, but that means all these people will be gone and I'll be stuck with A.J. Brown at best. Do I want him? Do I not? You can make those decisions as you go. Again, this can be as easy or as complicated as you want to make it. For positional help, they also give you a rolling draft scout suggestions. So now that actual mock draft is going, and you see Justin Jefferson went right away. He's been on average the highest drafted. McCaffrey, running back, went number 2. That's been quite common, but we won't have to go into the politics of that. Like I said, whoever shows up in this X ranking, except for positions, I'm going to take just to not give anything away. So if Jamar Chase, my little screen here, I have to slide myself down. You have to make sure you go to draft. If you just keep clicking on them, it won't click. Okay, so over to draft. I will slide myself back up and actually move myself slightly over. The queue here that says on the side, if you want to set a queue because you're a little bit worried about your computer not doing or crapping out and maybe it's going to auto take people or whatever, by starring somebody. Okay, so if I just kind of go over here, they have a little star. So let's say Nick Chubb. Let's be mature here. It's not just because his last name I'm going to click him. He's also a Cleveland Brown. Oh no, there he goes. By putting him in, he automatically shows up in my queue, meaning if he's not taken before me and something happens and I don't, I don't get to make the pick or it times out, whoops, see, he just went, then that'll automatically take it for me, okay? You also notice here when I drafted him, he gets put into a roster spot. This isn't permanent. If you remember the first video, you can move people around as much as you want within their positional allotment, but this just gives you an idea of when you've filled up your roster, okay? So our turn is come up again. Now, in this case, some people get really worried about positions, but we do need pretty much 2 of everything. So if CeeDee Lamb is the next one they say to take, I will take that. That does give me 2 wide receivers. Now, you're going to want more wide receivers and running backs, and in our case, probably quarterbacks. Sorry, I know that makes the screen come up. So if the next time we came up, it would also be a running back, wide receiver, that's not the end of the world. They'll just go to my flex and then my bench. Some people like to fill up with one position because they know positions like running backs get hurt a lot. So sometimes you want more of them. In a 2 quarterback league, some people want multiple. You want 3 or 4 quarterbacks, which makes it a lot harder for people to get. It could also be strategy. If I notice that other people may need a position, maybe I want to take it. But again, that's thinking and learning. And some of you don't want to do that. And if you don't want to do that, like I said, it's starting to give us suggestions. Now you'll notice here the suggestions, even though technically the next person up is Garrett Wilson, he's not on our list. And part of the reason for that is he's also a wide receiver. So the computer is already figuring out, and Yahoo's essentially trying to sort out that maybe I wouldn't want a wide receiver. I'd either want a quarterback in Mahomes or a running back in Hall. Okay, Brees Hall is his name, by the way. All right. You notice someone actually did take a quarterback. It's not that uncommon at this point. So for this case, though, I said I would take the next person up, but for the sake of positions, just so you can see how it works. Actually, no, I'll do that because then you can see when it drops. So I take another wide receiver. And now he's not here, but he's down. He'll be in my flex. If I take a wide receiver again, he'll automatically go to my bench. Okay. But at that point, to be honest, I wouldn't have taken a wide receiver there normally, just if you're looking for strategy. I probably would have taken a running back or a quarterback just because having three of the same position off the bat doesn't make much sense. Tight ends don't tend to go for a little bit unless you're Travis Kelce. He'll go early. And then kickers and defense. Some people like taking them right away before they fill up their bench. Often, personally, I'm not going to take a kicker to the last round because I don't really care that much. You can do whatever you want to do. Yahoo, if they auto draft for you, will fill your roster first. So if something happens and you can't make it on our draft day at the last minute, that is what will happen to you. You'll get all of your picks in. Your starting lineup will go first. And that's not the end of the world either because, like I said, everyone's got a draft strategy. So you can tell here, this is all tight end, running back, quarterback. That's because the computer is telling me, please, even though Devontae Smith, the wide receiver, is there, they're saying, please do not get another wide receiver. You can't start 4 of them. 3 is the max. Okay? At this point, if you feel comfortable, if you've gone through, you can stop the mock draft. There's only one more thing I'm going to show you. So for me personally, let's say I don't want to do wide receiver. I've done too many, and I do want to do a quarterback. All right, and Mahomes just went, and I don't know any other quarterbacks. I go to all players, click here, just quarterbacks, and it's going to tell me the quarterbacks in order. And again, it's the same thing. It does the X ranking. I want to do average draft. Well, it looks like Josh Allen is the next recommended one. Or do I want to do running backs? Just whenever you click on it, it'll stay on that as the sorting device. So if I want to go back to the X rank, I just have to do that. Okay? And whichever way you'd want to do that, you can go ahead. So let's say in this case, since we have 2 quarterbacks, I'll do average draft position. This is the next person up. So obviously people are starting to go because that Josh Allen guy is gone. I will draft a quarterback and we'll go from there. Again, at this stage, you want to look at other things here. So we've got total stats from last year, advanced stats. You want to get tricky. These are just projections. And as we know, I'm going already. So let me just take whatever running back's next, just so I'm not holding things up. I'm taking a guy who's PUP. That means he's already on the injured reserve. You can look him up if you would like to know why. All of these numbers are helpful, but sometimes they can kind of give us the wrong stakeholder posting, right? So then we kind of see a number and we're lost to it. But like I said, everyone here has got a different way of coming into this, and this is going to give you much more information than you need. If you just want to go back to the basic screen, again, you go all players, X ranking, and we've got back to our line. Okay? I think that's probably all we really need to know, and I think everything else is nice. I do recommend doing this at least for 1 or 2 rounds just to get your bearings. That way it's a little bit easier when we're all together next week, and then you're more worried about what side beverage you're consuming and what trash talk you're throwing our way rather than what button should I be pressing. Oh God, who am I drafting now? It happens. Any questions, as always, just let me know. Good luck.